Hey everyone, welcome to YuriTales. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's video. Let me know your favorite moment in the comment section.
The first time my boss asked me to marry her, she did it in front of 12 people, a glass table, and a man who looked like he could buy my entire family tree. And I laughed. I actually laughed, because I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. "Get up," she whispered without moving her lips, her fingers digging into my thigh under the table. "And smile before you get us both fired." That was the moment I realized two things. One, I was definitely going to lose my job. Two, my boss, the coldest woman in this entire building, was panicking. And that was new. Very new. Because Lena Hart never panicked. She fired people without blinking. She walked through the office like she owned oxygen. She never smiled, never joked, never even said good morning. But right now, her hand was gripping my leg like I was the last life raft on a sinking ship. And in front of us stood her father, the billionaire. The reason this whole nightmare was my biggest problem in life was choosing between instant noodles or sleeping for dinner. I was an assistant in Hart & Company corporate law, glorified coffee runner, printer fixer, schedule organizer, and Lena Hart's personal assistant, which meant I saw her more than anyone else did. I knew she drank black coffee with no sugar. She worked until 2 a.m. She hated small talk. She had never once mentioned a partner. When she called me into her office after work hours, closed the door, and said, "I need you to pretend to be my fiancé for a month." I stared at her for a full 10 seconds and replied, "I think you called the wrong assistant." She didn't smile. "I'm serious." And that was the moment my peaceful, boring life ended. Her father was forcing her into an arranged engagement with a man from another wealthy family. She refused. He didn't listen. So, she did the most reckless thing possible. She told him she was already engaged. To me, her assistant, who once tripped and spilled iced coffee on her $4,000 blade. "I will pay you," she said calmly. "More than you make in a year." "I'm not worried about the money," I replied. She raised a brow. "Then what?" "I'm worried about the part where I have to pretend to be your fiancé." Her eyes dropped to my lips for half a second. "You won't have to pretend much. Just hold my hand. Attend events. Act convincing. Convincing." That word should have been illegal. Because from the way she said it, it didn't sound perfect. Her father us too pleasantly. "So this is the woman you've chosen over a dynasty," he said. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. Lena's hand slid from my thigh to my waist. Possessive, warm, very, very real. And for the first time since this arrangement started, I forgot this was fake. Because the way she pulled me closer, no one fakes that naturally. And I realized something terrifying. I wasn't nervous because her father was here. I was nervous because Lena Hart was touching me like I belonged to her. And I liked it. Way too. I was then understood something important. I wasn't scared of losing my job. I was scared of what would happen if this fake engagement stopped feeling fake. Because every time she touched me, my heart forgot this was a contract. He did not blink. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He didn't even look surprised. And somehow, that was worse. Because men like him didn't react. They calculated. He gestured for us to sit. Lena's hand was still on my waist as we lowered ourselves back into the leather chairs, and I realized she hadn't let go since she first grabbed me. Not once. Not when the waiter poured wine. Not when her father started asking questions. Not even when my brain began screaming, "You are way too aware of where her fingers are." "So," he said smoothly, folding his hands on the table, "how did you two meet?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. "Because we never planned this part." Lena answered without hesitation. She spilled coffee on me. I turned to her so fast I almost headbutted her. She didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on her father. She apologized for 20 minutes straight. I asked her to stop. She kept going. I found it endearing. This woman stared at me that day like she was deciding whether to fire me or erase me from existence. Her father's eyes moved to me, sharp, assessing, curious. "And you?" he asked. I swallowed. I thought she was terrifying. Lena's thumb pressed slightly into my side. A warning? A reaction? I didn't know. But I added quickly, I also thought she was very beautiful. There was a pause, a long one. Her father leaned back. Lena's thumb stopped moving, and for a split second I realized something horrifying. That wasn't part of the act. That just slipped out, and from the way Lena's jaw tightened slightly, she knew it too. Her father smiled. Well, that explains everything. I did not know what that meant, but it did not sound good. An interrogation disguised as conversation. Where did we go on dates? Who confessed first? How long had we been together? Lena answered everything with terrifying ease, creating a relationship history so believable I almost believed it myself. She hates tomatoes, Lena said casually at one point. I turned to her. I do not hate tomatoes. She didn't miss a beat. You pick them out of every sandwich. I do that because they're soggy. Her father watched this exchange with narrowed eyes, observing, measuring, and then he said the sentence that nearly killed me. Then I assume you won't mind a small test. Lena's hand tightened. What kind of test? She asked, her voice calm but lower now. He smiled. A simple one. Kiss her. I choked on air. The waiter nearly dropped a glass. The entire restaurant noise seemed to fade into nothing. I turned to Lena. She turned to me. And in her eyes, for the first time since this started, I saw it. Uncertain. Because we never discussed this. We talked about holding hands, hugging, looking convincing. We never talked about this. Her father leaned back in his chair, watching us like we were a business deal he was evaluating. If you're engaged, he said, this should be natural. Natural. I suddenly became very aware of the fact that Lena Hart was only inches away from me, that her hand was still on my waist, that I could feel her warmth through the thin fabric of my blouse, and that my heart was beating like it was trying to escape my body. She leaned closer, slowly. So slowly I thought time had stopped. Her voice was so soft only I could hear. May I? That question, that one simple question, made this 10 times worse because she wasn't commanding. She wasn't acting. She was asking. I nodded before my brain could stop me. And then her hand slid from my waist to the back of my neck. Gentle, firm, her thumb brushing slightly against my skin. My breath caught. I expected a quick peck. Something fake, something for show. That's not what happened. Her lips touched mine, and for a split second neither of us moved. But then, her fingers tightened slightly in my hair, and she tilted her head just a little. And the kiss deepened. Not inappropriate, not rushed, but real. Warm, soft. Lingering just long enough that my brain stopped working entirely. I forgot her father. I forgot the restaurant. I forgot this was supposed to be a performance. All I knew was that Lena Hart kissed like she meant it. And when she pulled away, her forehead almost brushed mine. Her breathing wasn't steady. Neither was mine. We stayed like that for one dangerous second too long. Her father cleared his throat, and just like that, reality crashed back. Lena sat up straight again, face calm, unreadable. I, on the other hand, looked like I had just been rebooted. Her father nodded slowly. Convincing, he said. If I knew. The ride home was silent. Lena drove. I stared out the window. My lips still felt warm. My heart still hadn't recovered. Neither of us spoke for a full 10 minutes. And then, without looking at me, she said quietly, I'm sorry about that. I blinked. You asked? I meant the way I kissed you. I turned to her. What was wrong with the way you kissed me? She finally glanced at me, and something flickered in her eyes. That's exactly the problem. The problem with being kissed by your boss is not the kiss. It's what happens after. Because now you have to go back to work the next morning and pretend your brain didn't short-circuit the night before. I woke up late, not because my alarm didn't ring, but because I spent half the night replaying it. The way her hand slid into my hair, the way she paused like she was deciding something, the way she kissed me like she wasn't acting. I stared at my ceiling and whispered to myself, it was fake. It was fake. It was fake. My heart, Lena was already there. Of course she was. She always arrived before everyone else, like she didn't need sleep, emotions, or a personal life. She was standing by the glass window of her office when I walked in. City skyline behind her, phone pressed to her ear, black blazer, hair perfectly tied back, calm, collected, cold. Like last night never happened. She didn't even look at me when I stepped in. She simply pointed to her desk, a stack of files, coffee, her tablet. Normal, painfully normal. I stood there for a second waiting for her to acknowledge me. She didn't. So I said, "Good morning." She nodded once, still on the phone. That was it. No mention of the kiss, no awkwardness, no tension. And somehow, that bothered me more than if she had panicked. Because now I was the only one feeling strange. The entire office knew. Not about the kiss, about the engagement, because her father had already told people. Colleagues who never looked at me twice were suddenly smiling too much, whispering, staring. One woman from accounting actually came to my desk and said, "So this is how assistants get promoted." I laughed awkwardly. Inside, I wanted to crawl into the printer and live there. By 2 p.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Lena. Come to my office, no emoji, no context. Just that. I walked in like I was about to be sentenced. She was sitting behind her desk, glasses on, reading something. She didn't look up when she spoke. We need to set rules. Rules. That word felt safe, professional. I nodded quickly. Yes, rules are good. She gestured for me to sit. I did. She removed her glasses slowly and looked at me fully for the first time today, and my stomach did a very stupid flip. Rule 1, she said calmly. In public, you stay close to me. No awkward distance. I can do that. Rule 2. If my father is present, you let me lead. Don't overtalk. I nodded. Rule 3. Her eyes dropped to my lips for a split second before returning to my eyes. If situations like last night happen again, you don't freeze. I blinked. I did not freeze. You stopped breathing. I was surprised. Her lips twitched slightly. Not a smile, but close. And finally, she said, leaning back in her chair, "You will be moving into my penthouse for the duration of this arrangement." I stared at her. "I'm sorry. It will be suspicious if my fiancé doesn't live with me. Live with her, in her penthouse, for a month." My brain shut down again. I have a small apartment. You can keep it, but you won't be staying there. She said it like it was already decided. "Lena, this is a lot." Her voice softened just slightly. "I know. But this needs to look real. She added, "I don't trust you to act naturally if we don't spend time together." I gasped. "Are you saying I'm a bad actress?" "I'm saying you blush every time I look at you." I shut my mouth immediately. She wasn't wrong. And the fact that she noticed made it. That evening, I stood in her penthouse living room holding my suitcase, feeling like I had entered a hotel owned by someone who hated comfort. Everything was sleek, glass, white, silent. Lena walked in behind me, placing her keys down. "You can take the guest room," she said. I nodded, looking around. "This place is huge. I don't use most of it. Why?" She paused for a second before answering. "I work." That answer felt heavier than it should have. I turned to her. She had removed her blazer, rolled up her sleeves. She looked less like a CEO and more like a woman. A very beautiful woman, standing a little too close to me. "You'll need clothes for the events this week," she said. "We're going shopping tomorrow." Yes. I can't have my fiancé dressing like this. I looked down at my oversized sweater and jeans. Rude? Accurate? I grabbed a cushion and threw it at her. She caught it easily. And for the first time since I met her, she laughed. A soft, surprised laugh that escaped before she could stop it. We both froze, because that sound didn't belong to the Lena Hart I knew, and the way she looked at me after, like I had just done something dangerous, something personal, something no one else had managed to do. I realized then, living with her was going to be a very bad idea, because if one laugh could do this to my heart, I was in serious trouble. Morning in Lena Hart's penthouse did not feel like morning. It felt like waking up inside a museum. Everything was too quiet, too polished, too expensive to breathe near. I lay in the guest bed staring at the ceiling, trying to remember where I was. Then I remembered. Fake fiancé, penthouse, boss. And my heart immediately started acting foolish again. I checked my phone. 7:12 a.m., a message from Lena sent at 6:45. "Breakfast is on the counter. We leave in 30 minutes. Wear something decent." Something decent was a dangerous instruction coming from her. I opened my suitcase and realized something tragic. I did not own decent. I owned comfortable, lazy, affordable. I ended up wearing the nicest thing I had. A simple fitted black top, high-waisted jeans, and white sneakers. When I stepped into the kitchen, Lena was already dressed, and I mean dressed. Cream blouse tucked into tailored trousers, hair tied back, minimal jewelry, effortlessly expensive. She looked at me, paused, tilted her head slightly. "We're definitely going shopping first," I frowned. "You said decent." I underestimated the situation. Rude. She handed me a coffee. Black. The way she drank it. I blinked. "You remembered how I take my coffee? You told me 3 months ago when you spilled it on me." She remembered that. I didn't know why that made my chest feel. The shopping mall we went to did not have price tags. That was my first warning sign. The second was when the staff greeted Lena by name. The third was when she said, "Dress her for corporate events. Elegant, soft colors, dress her." Like I was a mannequin. I stood awkwardly while 3 women measured me, handed me outfits, and pushed me into a changing room. "Lena," I called from inside. "I don't know how to wear half of this." She walked in, without knocking. I turned around so fast I nearly tripped over a heel. She stopped in front of me. Close, very close. Her eyes scanned me slowly, and my brain forgot how to function. I was wearing a cream-fitted dress. It hugged my waist, flowed slightly at the hips. I had never worn anything like this. She didn't speak for a moment. She just looked. Then she stepped closer and adjusted the strap on my shoulder gently. Her fingers brushed my skin. Electric. "This one," she said quietly. I swallowed. "You look beautiful." She said it like a fact, not a compliment. Not flirtatious, just
This
truth.
looks good on you.
And somehow,
Thank
that made it
you.
hit harder.
I really like it.
I looked away first. By the 3rd outfit, I was exhausted. By the 5th, I was overwhelmed. By the 7th, Lena had started standing inside the changing area with me instead of waiting outside, and neither of us acknowledged that it was becoming strangely normal. At one point, I struggled with the zipper of a navy dress. "Turn around," she said. I did. Her fingers brushed the back of my neck as she slowly pulled the zipper up. Too slowly. Her hand lingered at the small of my back, and neither of us moved. I could feel her breath. Close. Very close. "If this is too much," she said quietly, "we can stop." I shook my head, but my voice came out softer than I expected. "It's fine." It wasn't. But not for the reason she... Later, we walked out with bags I could never afford in 10 lifetimes. She carried most of them without effort. I watched her from the side. This woman who was always so composed, so controlled. But today she looked different, less guarded, like she wasn't just playing the role, like she was starting to forget where the acting ended. "Why me?" I asked suddenly. She looked at me. "What? For this whole thing, you could have asked anyone, someone more elegant, experienced, confident." She didn't answer immediately. She stopped walking, turned fully to face me. "Because you don't look at me like I'm untouchable." I blinked. "You argue with me. You laugh at me. You spill coffee on me. You're not intimidated." I laughed. "I am absolutely intimidated." She shook her head slightly. "No, you see me as a person, not a title." That hit me harder than I expected, because it sounded like something she had been missing for a long time. And for the first time, I wondered if this arrangement wasn't just for her father. Maybe. She needed... That night back at the penthouse, she cooked. Which shocked me more than the fake engagement. "You cook?" I asked, leaning on the counter. "Sometimes." She handed me a knife. "Cut the vegetables." We stood side by side in her quiet kitchen, bumping elbows, arguing about how thick carrots should be sliced, laughing when I almost cut my finger, and it felt so normal, so domestic, so dangerously comfortable. At one point, I reached for a spice jar at the same time she did. Our hands touched. Neither of us pulled away. We just stood there for a second too long, looking at each other. The air shifted, changed. Her gaze dropped to my lips again, and this time, there was no audience, no father, no acting, just us. She stepped back first, cleared her throat. "Dinner's ready." But her voice had changed, and so had mine, because I realized something as we sat down to eat. This wasn't feeling like a job anymore. It was starting to feel like something a lot more dangerous. and we were only on day 2. The first event happened 3 days after I moved into Lena's penthouse. 3 days of shared breakfasts, silent car rides, accidental brushes of hands, long looks that neither of us addressed. 3 days of pretending this was still just a contract. The invitation was from one of her father's business partners, a charity gala filled with people who wore diamonds like they were plastic and smiled like they were rehearsing for an award show. Lena stood in front of the mirror in her room, adjusting her cufflinks. I stood behind her, staring at myself in the reflection. I almost didn't recognize the woman looking back. Soft champagne-colored dress, hair-styled, subtle makeup, heels I still wasn't confident walking in. I looked like someone who belonged next to her, and that realization did something strange to my chest. "You're staring," Lena said. "I'm trying to figure out if that's me, or a rich clone version of me." She turned then, and stopped. Her eyes moved slowly from my face down to the dress, then back up, and the way her gaze softened slightly made my stomach flip. "Good," she said quietly. "You look like my fiancé." I swallowed. Why did that sound less like a role and more like a statement? She stepped closer and reached for my wrist. A delicate bracelet, silver, minimal, elegant. She clasped it around my wrist gently. "For tonight," she said. Her fingers lingered against my skin, and again, that look. The one that made it hard to... The gala hall was enormous, golden lights, soft music, conversations layered over laughter. The moment we stepped inside, Lena's hand slid to my waist automatically. Not forced, not stiff, natural. And I leaned into her without thinking, which was new, very new. People stared, whispered, smiled too widely. She guided me through the crowd with ease, introducing me to people whose names I instantly forgot. "This is my fiancé," she said each time, and every single time, something inside me reacted, like hearing it repeatedly was making it settle somewhere deep in my heart. Then we saw him, the man her father wanted her to marry, tall, polished, expensive smile. He approached us with a glass of champagne and a look that said he did not like me already. "So this is her," he said, eyes scanning me like I was a misplaced object. Lena's hand tightened on my waist. "Yes," she replied calmly. He smirked. "Didn't expect you to pick some..." I felt the insult immediately. Before I could say anything, Lena spoke. "She's the smartest person there." His smile faltered. I turned to her, shocked. She didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on him, possessive, protective, and very convincing. He leaned slightly closer to me. "You must feel very lucky." I smiled politely. "I do." Lena's thumb pressed into my waist again. A silent signal. And then she did something that made my heart stop. She pulled me closer. Not subtly, not for show. She tucked me against her side like I belonged there, like she didn't want him anywhere near me. "I think we're needed elsewhere," she said coolly, guiding me away. I didn't speak until we reached the balcony. The night air hit my face, and I exhaled. "That man hates me. He hates that I chose you," she corrected. I laughed nervously. "You didn't choose me." She looked at me, really looked at me, and said quietly, "Didn't I?" The way she said it made my... Music floated from inside. Lights from the city shimmered below. And for the first time since we arrived, we were alone. She was still standing close. Too close. My back brushed the railing. Her hand was still at my waist. Neither of us moved. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Are you..." She exhaled slowly. "I don't like when people look at you like that," I blinked. "Like what?" "Like you're something temporary." The words hung between us. Heavy. Dangerous. Her hand slid slightly from my waist to my lower back. Gentler now, her thumb brushing absent circles. And I realized my heart was beating way too fast. "You're doing really well," she said quietly. "So are you." Her gaze dropped to my lips. Again, but this time it lingered longer. The air felt different, charged, like something was about to happen that we couldn't blame on acting. "I think," she said softly, "we should go back inside before I forget this is fake." She didn't move. I didn't either. We just stood there, looking at each other, until someone opened the balcony door and the moment shattered. But the tension didn't leave. It followed us inside, stayed between us. And by the time the night ended, I realized something terrifying. We weren't pretending anymore. We were trying very hard not to do something real. The problem started the next morning, not with Lena, with me, because I woke up before her, walked into the kitchen half asleep, poured coffee into 2 mugs out of habit, and smiled. Smiled. Like this was normal. Like living in her penthouse, attending galas, being called her fiancé, and having her hand on my waist was something my life had always contained. That realization scared me more than anything else so far. I wasn't pretending anymore. She walked into the kitchen a few minutes later, hair loose, wearing a simple gray long-sleeve shirt and black lounge pants. No blazer, no heels, no CEO Lena, just Lena. And for some reason, this version of her was the most dangerous one yet. She looked softer like this, more human, more reachable. She paused when she saw the coffee already on the counter. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," I said. "I wanted to." She nodded once and took the mug. We stood there in silence, sipping, and it wasn't awkward, which was the problem, because this felt like a couple morning, and my brain did not know how. Around noon, Lena got a call from her father. I knew, because her posture changed immediately. Stiffer, colder. She stepped into the living room to take it, but I could still hear her voice. "Yes?" Pause. "She'll be there." Pause. "No, that won't be necessary." Long pause. Then silence. She ended the call and stood still for a second before turning to me. "We have to attend a family lunch tomorrow." I blinked. "Family?" "Yes. My father, his sister, and a few others." "Others?" She hesitated. "People who don't believe this engagement is real." "Ah." So this was another test. She walked closer to me, her expression serious. "Tomorrow will be different. How? They will try to make you uncomfortable. They will question you. They will provoke you." I nodded slowly. "Stay close to me," she said softly. "And don't let go of my hand." My heart did something stupid again. "I won't," I said. The lunch was worse than the gala, because this time, the smiles were fake. The stares were sharp, and the questions were personal. One woman, her aunt, I think, leaned forward and said, "So how did you manage to win Lena's heart? She's never liked anyone." I almost choked on my drink. Lena answered before I could. "She didn't try to." Her aunt raised a brow. "Meaning she just existed." I turned to her. She didn't look at me, but her hand found mine under the table and held it tightly, very tightly. The entire lunch felt like an interview for a role I didn't audition for. But Lena never let go of my hand, not once. Her thumb moved gently against my skin, almost unconsciously, and each time someone asked something uncomfortable, she would squeeze slightly, a silent reassurance. "I'm here, I've got you." And I realized something terrifying halfway through dessert. She wasn't holding my hand for the act anymore. I was quiet. She noticed. "You did well," she said. "I feel like I just survived an exam I didn't study for." She almost smiled. Then she glanced at me. "You don't have to be nervous around them. You're with me." That sentence, "You're with me," did things to my heart that I was not prepared for. It rained. Hard. The kind of rain that made the city look blurry and distant from the penthouse windows. The power flickered once, then went out. The entire place went dark. I gasped. "I hate the dark," I admitted immediately. "I know," she said calmly. I turned to her. "How do you know that? You leave the hallway light on every night." I didn't realize she noticed things like that. She lit a few candles around the living room. Soft light, quiet rain, warm shadows on the walls. It felt intimate. Too intimate. We sat on the couch, closer than usual because the rest of the penthouse was pitch black. I could hear the rain, her breathing. My own heartbeat. "This is ridiculous," I muttered. "We're scared of the dark like children." She didn't reply. She was looking at me. In the candlelight, her eyes softer than I had ever seen them. "You're not scared," she said quietly. "You just don't like feeling alone." I swallowed. She moved closer. Not touching. Just close enough that our shoulders brushed, and neither of us moved away. "You're not alone," she added softly, and that was the moment something shifted. Not dramatic, not loud, but deep, because I believed her, completely. Her hand moved slowly to mine, our fingers intertwined naturally. No acting, no reason, just comfort. We sat like that for a long time, listening to the rain, holding hands in the dim candlelight. And when the power finally came back on, neither of us let go immediately, because we both knew. We had crossed another line, one that had nothing to do with pretending. By the end of the first week, the lines were gone, not blurred, Gone. We still called it a fake engagement. But nothing about our daily life felt fake anymore. We cooked together. We watched late-night news on the same couch. She reminded me to drink water. I reminded her to sleep. And every night, I went to the guest room wondering why I felt. Saturday morning, Lena walked into the kitchen, unusually relaxed. "No work today," she said. I gasped dramatically. The Lena heart knows the meaning of rest. She ignored me, but I saw the corner of her lips move. "We're going out. Where? You'll see." That answer should have worried me, but instead, I felt excited, which was new. She took me to a boutique district across the city. Not corporate, not luxury, small shops, street cafes, music in the air. "This is unexpected," I said. She glanced at me. "You said you like places with life?" I stared at her. "You remember everything I say, don't you?" She didn't answer. Which meant yes. We walked side by side. No event, no pressure, no audience. Just us. At some point, our hands brushed, and instead of pulling away like before, she simply turned her hands slightly and intertwined our fingers. Casual. Natural. My brain short-circuited. She didn't even look at me when she did it, like it was the most normal thing in the world, and I didn't know whether to panic or smile. So I did. We stopped at a small clothing shop. "This place is cute," I said. She nodded. "Go try things." I frowned. "You're not coming?" "I'll wait." I tried on a few dresses for fun, not expensive ones like before. Then I found one. Simple, light blue, soft. I stepped out of the fitting room. She looked up and froze. Actually froze. Her eyes moved slowly over me, and something in her expression changed completely. "What?" I asked nervously. She stood up and walked toward me. Slowly. "You should get that. Is it nice?" Her voice dropped slightly. "You look unreal." The way she said it made my face heat up. I laughed awkwardly. "You're staring again." She stepped closer. Too close. Her fingers reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "You don't even realize what you do to people, do you?" My breath caught. "What do I do?" She didn't answer. She just kept looking at me like she was trying to memorize. And the world outside that tiny shop disappeared. I stopped for coffee. A small cafe with outdoor seating. We sat across from each other. Talking. Actually talking. Not about work. Not about the fake engagement. About childhood. Favorite foods. Random stories. She told me about how she used to sketch when she was younger. I almost choked. "You? Sketch?" She nodded. I stopped when work took over. "You should start again." She looked at me thoughtfully. "Maybe I will." The way she said it sounded like she meant, "because of you." That house, something felt different. Softer. Closer. We were standing in the kitchen again after dinner. I was rinsing plates. She was drying them, our arms brushing occasionally. Then I slipped slightly on a drop of water. I didn't fall, because Lena's arm wrapped around my waist instantly. Firm. Protective. My back hit her chest. Her hand stayed there. Neither of us moved. I could feel her heartbeat. Fast. Mine was worse. "Careful," she murmured near my ear, her voice low, close, way too close. I turned slightly to face her, which brought our faces inches apart, and we both stopped breathing. No audience, no reason, no acting. Just the two of us in a quiet kitchen. Her eyes dropped to my lips again. This time she didn't look away. My hand was still resting on the counter. Her hand was still at my waist, and the air felt heavy. Charged, like the room knew something we hadn't admitted yet. "Lena," I whispered. She swallowed. Her fingers tightened slightly, and for a second, I thought she was going to kiss me. Not for a show, not for a test, but because she wanted to. Then the moment broke. Her phone rang loudly from the counter. We both jumped back like we'd been caught doing something illegal. She cleared her throat and stepped away to answer it. I stood there, heart racing, trying to understand what just happened. And one terrifying thought settled in my mind. We weren't pretending to be engaged anymore. We were trying very hard not to act like we actually were. Something changed after that night in the kitchen. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in the way Lena started looking at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention, and in the way I started noticing. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. The silence between us had become... At the office was chaos. Not normal chaos, whispering chaos, because photos from the gala had been posted online and in every single one. Lena was holding me, hand at my waist, fingers laced with mine, looking at me like I was the only person in the room. People were staring at their screens like they had just discovered a secret. My phone buzzed with messages from coworkers. Is this real? Since when? Girl, I wanted to disappear into the floor. Lena, however, walked through the office like nothing had happened. Calm, composed, unbothered. But when we stepped into her office and the door closed, she exhaled. Long, slow. They're going to talk, she said. They already are. She nodded. Then she looked at me. Really looked. Does it bother you? I hesitated. No. She tilted her head slightly. Why not? Because every picture looked real. Because the way she looked at me in those photos made my heart do embarrassing things. Because I shrugged. I guess I'm getting used to this. Her eyes softened just a little. Good. She had a meeting with clients in the conference room. And for the first time since this started, she asked, "Sit with me." I blinked. Inside the meeting, yes. I didn't argue. I sat beside her at the long glass table while people talked about contracts and numbers I barely followed. But I did notice one thing. Her hand rested on her thigh, very close to mine. And at some point, our fingers brushed, then stayed, just barely touching, hidden under the table. No one else knew. But my heart was beating so loudly I was sure the entire room could hear it. She didn't move her hand. Neither did I. And we sat through a 2-hour meeting pretending nothing was happening while our fingers quietly rested against each other. That small contact felt more intimate than the kiss at the restaurant. Because this wasn't for show. This was comfort. Later that Lena had to attend a corporate dinner. Formal. Important. She insisted I come. You don't have to talk, she said, just be there. I wore one of the dresses we bought. Soft lavender. She wore black. Sharp, elegant, intimidating. And the entire dinner, people kept looking at us. Because we didn't act like people faking anything. We acted like two people who were very aware of each other. At one point, a woman leaned toward Lena and said jokingly, "You're very affectionate for someone who claims to hate people." Lena didn't laugh. She simply replied, "I don't hate everyone." And her eyes flicked to me, very briefly, but enough for the woman to notice. Enough for me to notice. Enough for my stomach to flip. When we got to the penthouse, it was late. Both of us tired. The elevator ride up was quiet, heavy, the kind of silence that wasn't awkward but full. She unlocked the door. We stepped inside, and neither of us moved to turn on the lights. We just stood there in the dim hallway, city lights spilling in from the windows. "You did well tonight," she said softly. "You say that a lot, because it's true." I laughed lightly. "You're starting to sound less like a boss and more like a—" I stopped myself. She noticed. "Like a what?" I swallowed. "Nothing." She stepped closer. Too close. "Say it." My back brushed the wall. Her hand came up beside my head, resting against it, not trapping, but not giving me space either. "Like a girlfriend," I whispered. The word hung in the air. Dangerous. Real. Her eyes searched my face, slowly, carefully, and for the first time since this started, she didn't look composed. She looked conflicted. Because we both knew that word were a joke. Her gaze dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes. Her fingers twitched slightly against the wall, and I realized she was fighting herself. Fighting the urge to do something we couldn't blame on the contract. "Go to bed," she said quietly. Her voice strained. I nodded, but neither of us moved for a second. Then she stepped back, and the space between us felt colder than it should have. As I walked to my room, one thought kept repeating in my head. We weren't scared of crossing the line. We were scared of what would happen if we did. By the second week, the penthouse no longer felt like Lena's place. It felt like ours. My shoes were by the door. My mug was next to hers in the cabinet. My hair tie somehow always ended up on the kitchen counter. And every night, without fail, we ended up on the same couch. Too close for people who were pretending. Neither of us mentioned it, because mentioning it would make it real. That evening, Lena came home later than usual, tired. I could see it immediately in the way her shoulders dropped when she stepped inside. "You look exhausted," I said from the kitchen. "I am... Sit. I'll finish dinner." She didn't argue. She just sat at the counter, watching me move around like I belonged there. There was something in her gaze tonight, something softer, quieter, like she was observing me, not as part of a plan, but as part of her life. "You hum when you cook," she said suddenly. I blinked. "I do. Yes, that's embarrassing. I like it." That simple sentence did something warm to my chest. After dinner, we didn't turn on the TV. We just stayed in the living room with low lights, and the city glowing through the window. She loosened her tie and leaned back into the couch. I sat beside her, knees almost touching. "You can talk to me," I said gently. "You don't always have to be the strong one." She looked at me for a long moment, then she did something unexpected. She shifted closer, close enough that our shoulders fully touched, and she exhaled, long, tired. "I don't know how to stop working," she admitted quietly. I turned slightly toward her. "You don't have to stop. Just pause." She looked at me like I had said something important, and then, without saying anything else, she leaned her head back and closed her eyes. A few minutes later, I realized she had fallen asleep, right there, next to me. I didn't move. I didn't dare, because her head had tilted slightly toward my shoulder, and if I shifted even an inch, I would wake her. So I stayed, sitting there, letting her rest, watching her face in the soft light. She looked younger like this, less guarded, less just peaceful. And something inside me tightened, because this version of Lena felt very personal, very private, like something not many people got to see. Carefully, I adjusted myself so her head rested fully against my shoulder. She stirred slightly. Her hand moved and rested on my thigh, not intentionally, not consciously, but there it stayed, warm, heavy. My heart started racing, but I didn't move it. I couldn't, because this didn't feel like pretending. This felt like trust. After a while, she woke up slowly, confused, then aware. She realized where her head was, where her hand was, and she froze. We stayed like that for a second, neither of us speaking. Then she whispered, "Sorry." I shook my head softly. "Don't be..." She didn't move away immediately. Her eyes searched mine, close, very close, and the air shifted again. That familiar tension, the one that had been building for days. Her hand was still on my thigh. Her thumb moved almost unconsciously, and my breath caught. "Lena," I said softly. She swallowed. Her gaze dropped to my lips, slowly, carefully, like she was trying to decide something. And this time, there was no interruption, no phone ringing, no door opening, no excuse, just us. Her fingers tightened slightly against my thigh as she leaned closer. So slowly I could feel every second passing. I didn't move. I didn't stop her, because I didn't want to. Her forehead almost touched mine, her breath warm, her eyes half-lidded. "Tell me to stop," she whispered. I couldn't, because I didn't want her to, so I didn't say anything, and that was all the permission she needed. Her lips touched mine, soft at first, careful, testing. Nothing like the restaurant kiss. Nothing like acting. This was different, gentle, real. Her hand slid slightly from my thigh to my waist, pulling me closer, and when I responded, when I kissed her back, something changed. The kiss deep, not rushed, not wild, but full of everything we had been holding back. Her fingers moved into my hair. Mine found the fabric of her shirt, and for a moment, the world outside that couch didn't exist. When we finally pulled away, we were both breathing unevenly, foreheads almost touching, eyes still closed, and neither of us spoke, because we both knew that was not part of the plan. That was not pretending. That was something we couldn't undo. She opened her eyes first, and for the first time since I met her, Lena Hart looked completely vulnerable. "We just made this very complicated," she said softly. I nodded, but my heart wasn't scared, it was certain, because complicated or not, that kiss felt exactly right. The morning after the kiss felt strange, not awkward, not tense, just quietly charged, like the air in the penthouse had changed overnight and neither of us knew how to behave inside it. I woke up first. Lena's arm was still around my... We had fallen asleep on the couch. At some point in the night, we must have shifted, because now I was half lying against her, her hand resting possessively at my hip, like it belonged there. For a long moment, I just lay still, listening to her breathing, feeling the warmth of her body against mine, and remembering the kiss. Not a dream, not imagination, real, very real. Her fingers twitched slightly, tightening around me as she slowly woke up. She didn't move away, didn't pretend. She just opened her eyes and looked at me, and there was no confusion there, no denial, just awareness. "Good morning," she said, voice low from sleep. Morning. We stayed like that, Too close, too aware, too quiet. And then she did something that made my heart race. She brushed her thumb gently over my waist. Slow, absent-minded, intimate, like she didn't even realize she was doing it. But she didn't stop. "You're not moving away," she murmured. "You're not—" A small smile tugged at her lips. "I don't want to—" My breath caught. Neither did I. Reality returned when her phone started ringing from the coffee table. Work. Of course. She sighed, reluctantly letting me go to grab it. I sat up, watching her shift instantly from soft, sleepy Lena back to composed CEO Lena. But something had changed, because when she stood up to take the call, her hand brushed my shoulder gently as she passed. A silent touch, not accidental, and my stomach flipped. Later that afternoon, we had to attend a charity brunch, public appearance. More pretending, only now. It wasn't pretending, and we both knew it. I stood in the bedroom doorway while Lena adjusted her cufflinks in front of the mirror. She wore a cream suit today, elegant, sharp. Her hair pulled back neatly. She looked powerful, untouchable, until she glanced at me through the mirror, and her gaze softened instantly. I was wearing a soft blue dress she had bought for me earlier. She walked over slowly, too slowly, her eyes scanning me in a way that made my skin warm. "You look—" she started, then stopped. "Like your fake fiancé?" I teased. She stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat from her body. "No," she said quietly. "Like trouble." Before I could respond, her hand reached up and gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Her fingers lingered there, and for a split second, I thought she might kiss me again. Right there. But she pulled back. Barely. "Let's go before I forget we have an event to attend." The brunch was filled with wealthy donors' cameras, polite smiles. Lena's hand never left mine. Not once. Her thumb brushed over my knuckles every few seconds. Small, subtle, but so intimate it made it hard to focus. People noticed. They always did. But this time, it wasn't for show. At one point and whispered in my ear, "You're doing very well." Her breath sent shivers down my— "I'm just standing here." Exactly. Halfway through the event, an older woman approached us, elegant, observant. She looked at Lena, then at me, then smiled knowingly. "You've never looked this relaxed at one of these," she told Lena. I felt Lena's grip tighten slightly on my hand. "She's good for me," Lena replied smoothly. The woman chuckled. "I can see that. You're glowing, dear." I didn't know what to say, because for the first time, I wasn't acting. I was glowing. When we finally returned to the penthouse that evening, both of us were drained. But the quiet between us wasn't awkward. It was heavy, anticipating. Lena kicked off her heels near the door and leaned back against it with a long sigh. I walked past her toward the kitchen. "You hungry?" She didn't answer. I turned around. She was watching me, intensely. "Lena?" She pushed off the door and walked toward me slowly. There was no rush in her steps, no hesitation either. My back hit the kitchen counter before I even realized I had stepped back. She stopped right in front of me. Close. Very close. Her hands came to rest on either side of me, trapping me gently between her arms and the counter. "Do you have any idea," she said quietly, "how hard it was not to kiss you in front of everyone today?" My pulse skyrocketed. Probably as hard as it was for me. Her eyes darkened slightly, and this time, she didn't ask for permission. Her lips found mine again. Not soft like yesterday. Not hesitant. This kiss was deeper, hungrier. Like all the restraint from the day snapped at once. My hands instinctively moved to her waist, pulling her closer. Her body pressed against mine, and I could feel her breath hitch when I did. Her hand slid from the counter to my hip, then slowly up my side. Not inappropriate, but enough to make every nerve in my body light up. The kiss slowed, deepened. Our foreheads touched as we paused and I realized my hands were gripping her shirt tightly. She noticed too. A faint smile appeared on her lips. "You make me forget myself," she whispered. I swallowed. "You make me want to be remembered." Something in her expression changed, softer, more serious, more real. She brushed her thumb gently across my cheek. "This was supposed to be simple," she murmured. I nodded. "But it isn't. No, and for the first time since this fake relationship started, neither of us looked scared of that fact, because somewhere between pretending, we had fallen into something neither of us wanted to walk away. That night, neither of us said it. But everything had changed. We didn't go back to our rooms. We didn't pretend we needed space. We stayed in the living room long after the kiss, sitting side by side on the couch, knees touching, shoulders brushing every time one of us shifted. The TV was on. Neither of us was watching it. Lena's fingers were loosely wrapped around mine, resting on the cushion between us like it was the most natural thing in the world. And somehow, that felt more intimate than the kiss, because this wasn't heat. This was comfort. This was quiet choosing. The next morning, I woke up in her bed, not because anything happened, but because sometime after midnight, Lena had simply stood up, held out her hand, and said softly, "Come here." And I went. No questions, no teasing. Just trust. We had slept on opposite sides, but at some point during the night, I must have turned, because when I woke up, my face was buried in her shoulder, and her arm was firmly around my back, holding me, like she had been afraid I might disappear for a moment I didn't move. I just listened to her breathing, felt the steady rise and fall of her chest, and realized something that made my heart beat a little too fast. I felt safe, with her. Completely. She stirred slightly, tightening her arm around me before her eyes slowly opened. She didn't look surprised. She didn't pull away. She just looked at me, soft, warm. "You drool." She murmured sleepily. I gasped and pushed her lightly. "I do not." She smiled, not the polished CEO smile, a real one. "Stay," she said quietly when I tried to sit up. And I did. Because when she said it like that, it didn't feel like a request. It felt like she needed me there. That afternoon, things took a turn we weren't prepared for. Lena got a call from her PR manager, and from the look on her face, she paced the living room while listening, one hand in her hair, frustration clear in her posture. I sat quietly, watching, waiting. When she hung up, she exhaled sharply. "They want us to attend the gala tonight." "What gala?" "The Whitmore Foundation gala. Media heavy. Press everywhere." I blinked. "Tonight?" She nodded. "They want pictures, interviews, public confirmation that the engagement is solid." I felt my stomach flip, because until now, our public appearances had been controlled. This was big. She looked at me carefully. "You don't have to do this if you're uncomfortable." I surprised myself by answering quickly, "I'll go." Her eyes softened slightly. "You don't hesitate anymore." I smiled a little. "I think I stopped pretending a while ago." She didn't respond, but the way she looked at me said everything. Getting ready for the gala felt different, more intimate, more charged. I stood in my room, staring at the long black dress Lena had picked out for me. It was elegant. The kind of dress that made me nervous just looking at it. A knock came at my door. "Come in." Lena stepped inside, and for a moment she just stopped, because I was already dressed. Her eyes slowly moved from my shoulders, down to my waist, then back up again, and the way she looked at me made my breath hitch. "You look," she started, then stopped. "Like trouble?" I teased gently. She stepped closer. "No," she said quietly. "Like mine." My heart skipped. She reached forward and adjusted the thin strap on my shoulder. Her fingers lingered. Too long, too gentle, and the air between us felt thick. "Careful," I whispered. "Of what?" "You'll make me forget we're supposed to leave." Her lips curved slightly. "That's becoming a problem." The gala was overwhelming. Flashes of cameras, reporters calling Lena's name, people staring. But Lena's hand was firmly at my waist the entire time, not for show, for reassurance, for both of us. At one point, a reporter asked, "How did you—" Lena didn't miss a beat. She walked into my office and turned my life upside down. I stared at her. That wasn't part of the script. She glanced at me briefly, and there was something honest. When we got back to the penthouse, the silence was different again. Charged, heavy. Lena closed the door slowly behind us. Neither of us moved for a moment. Still standing in the entryway, still in our formal clothes, still looking at each other like we had something to say but didn't know how to start. "You were incredible tonight," she said softly. "So were you?" She took a step toward me, then another, until my back was gently against the wall, not trapped, but close, very close. Her hand came up to rest beside my head, the other found my waist, and when she kissed me this time, it wasn't rushed, it wasn't hungry, it was deep, slow, intentional, like she was trying to say something with it. My hand slid up to her shoulders, holding onto her, feeling the warmth through the fabric of her suit. She pulled me a little closer, and I could feel her heartbeat. Fast, just like mine. The kiss lingered, softened, but neither of us pulled. Our foreheads rested together, breathing the same air. "You make this very hard," she whispered. "What?" "Remembering this isn't real," I swallowed, because neither of us believed that anymore. Her thumb brushed gently over my waist. My fingers tightened slightly on her jacket, and for a moment, we just stood there, close, quiet, aware, not needing anything more, because somehow, this fake relationship had become the most real thing either of us had ever felt. Morning came quietly, but my heart was loud. I woke before Lena, not because I wanted to, but because the memory of last night kept replaying in my head like a scene from a movie I wasn't sure I was allowed to be in. The gala, the way she looked at me, the kiss against the wall, the way she said, "You make this very hard to remember, this isn't real." I lay there, staring at the ceiling, her arm loosely draped over my waist, and for the first time since this whole fake engagement began, I was, because this was no longer pretend. And if it wasn't pretend, then what were we doing? Lena stirred behind me, her fingers tightening slightly against my side. She didn't speak at first. She just buried her face into my shoulder like she wasn't ready to wake up yet. "Don't move," she murmured. "I wasn't good." Her voice was still husky from sleep, and it did something unfair to my stomach. I turned slightly to face her. She opened her eyes slowly. And there it was again, that softness she only ever showed when it was just us. Not the CEO, not the composed, untouchable woman the world knew. Just Lena, looking at me like I mattered. "You're thinking too much," she said quietly. I blinked. "How do you know? You get this little line between your eyebrows when you're trying to figure something out." She reached up and gently pressed her thumb there, smoothing it out, and my heart did something embarrassing. I hesitated. Just what? Wondering when we stopped. Her hand paused. Her eyes searched mine. And for a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she said softly, "I don't think we ever meant to start for real." That afternoon, something happened that neither of us expected. Someone from Lena's past showed up, her ex-fiancée. Her name was Marissa. Elegant, tall, impossibly confident. The kind of woman who walked into a room and expected everyone to notice. And she walked into Lena's office like she owned the place. I was there, sitting on the couch with Lena while she reviewed some documents on her tablet. We were close, comfortably close, when the door opened without knocking. Marissa stopped when she saw me. Then her eyes slowly moved to Lena's hand resting casually on my knee, her lips curved into a knowing smile. "So it's true?" Lena's posture changed instantly. Not cold, but guarded. "Marissa, you should have called. I wanted to see for myself." Her gaze returned to me, assessing, curious, almost. And this is the famous fiancé. I felt suddenly very aware of myself.
So this is the
Lena's
fiancé?
hand squeezed my
Yes,
knee
she
slightly,
is.
grounding me. "Yes," Lena said calmly. "This is her." Marissa tilted her head. "She's different from your usual type." Something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. Lena's voice sharpened slightly. "She's exactly my type." I turned to look at her, because that didn't sound rehearsed. Marissa noticed too, and for the first time her smile faltered. The conversation was tense, polite, but filled with things unsaid. Marissa was there under the excuse of catching up, but it was obvious why she came. She wanted to see if this relationship was real. She wanted to see if Lena had moved on, and the way her eyes kept flicking between us told me she was starting to understand something we hadn't even said out loud yet. At one point, Marissa asked casually, "So, how did you two meet?" Before I could answer, she She walked into my life and refused to leave. I looked at her. Again, not part of the script. Marissa noticed. And for the first time, I saw something like jealousy in her eyes. After she left, the office felt heavy. Quiet. I turned to Lena. Was she important to you? Lena didn't answer right away. She walked over to the window. Lena did the city. She was safe, she said finally. Safe? Yes. Predictable. Logical. Good for my image. Good for my life plan. She turned to look at me. You are none of those things. I crossed my arms. That's not very flattering. She walked back toward me slowly. It's the best compliment I can give you. She stopped right in front of me. Close enough that I had to tilt my head slightly to look at her. You make me feel things I can't control. Her hand reached up, gently brushing a strand of hair away from my face, and that terrifies me. My heart was beating so fast I was sure she could hear it. Does that scare you? Yes, she admitted. Does it make you want to stop? Her eyes didn't leave mine. No, and that answer did something irreversible to me. That night, the distance between us disappeared completely. Not because we planned it, not because we talked about it, but because we couldn't seem to stay away from each other. We were on the couch again, too close, our knees touching, our hands brushing every time one of us moved. The tension was thick, heavy, alive. Lena turned to say something, but she didn't, because I was already looking at her, and in that moment, we both knew. She leaned in first. The kiss wasn't hesitant. It wasn't testing. It was certain. Her hand slid gently to my waist, pulling me closer without force. Just intention. My fingers curled into the fabric of her shirt, holding on to her like I didn't want this moment to end. The kiss deepened, slower, warmer, and my mind stopped trying to make sense of anything, because this didn't feel confusing. It just felt right. She pulled back slightly, her forehead resting against mine. Her thumb traced small circles against my side. You're going to ruin me, she whispered. I smiled softly. Too late. The problem with feelings is that once they exist, they start demanding answers. And the next morning, that's exactly what mine did. I woke up before Lena again, but this time it wasn't soft or calm. It was heavy, because last night had crossed a line neither of us could pretend we hadn't seen. The kisses weren't accidental anymore. The closeness wasn't for show. The way we looked at each other wasn't professional, or fake, or controlled. It was real. Dangerously real. And reality is terrifying when you never planned for it. Lena was still asleep, her arm around my waist, her face relaxed in a way I'd only ever seen when she didn't know I was watching. I studied her quietly. This woman I was supposed to fake love for a month. This woman who now made my chest ache in the best and worst way possible. I carefully slipped out of bed, because I needed air. I needed space to think, and for the first time since moving into the penthouse, I felt overwhelmed by how fast everything had changed. I was halfway through making coffee when Lena walked into the kitchen, barefoot, hair slightly messy, wearing a loose shirt that looked like she had grabbed it without thinking. She stopped when she saw me, like she had expected me to still be there in bed. You left, she said softly. I just needed coffee. Her eyes studied me carefully. You're quiet. I forced a smile. I'm always quiet in the morning. She didn't buy it. She walked closer. Close enough that I could feel her presence without her touching me. Say it, she said gently. Say what? Whatever you're trying not to say. I swallowed, because she always saw through me. This is getting... Her jaw tightened slightly. Complicated how? We were supposed to pretend, but we're not pretending anymore. She didn't answer immediately, and that silence scared me, because Lena was never silent unless she didn't like the direction of the conversation. We can still control this, she said finally. I shook my head slowly. No, we can't. That afternoon, everything got worse. A news article dropped. Pictures from the gala. Pictures of us looking at each other like the world didn't exist. Headlines like, Lena Hart looks more in love than ever with her mysterious fiancé. The engagement that started as a PR move now looks very real. The comments were brutal. Speculation, gossip, people digging into my life, asking who I was. Why did Lena chose me if I was using her? If this was all fake, I stared at my phone, my chest tightening with every scroll. Lena took the phone from my hand. "Stop reading. This is my fault," I whispered. "No, it's..." I walked into your life and turned it upside down. Her expression softened. "You did, and I don't regret it. But the world is watching now," I said. "And they're not kind." She stepped closer. "I don't care about them? I do," I said quietly. "Because I don't want to be the reason your life becomes harder." That night, the distance between us returned. Not because we wanted it, but because we were both thinking too much. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, not touching, not speaking. The silence felt loud, painful. Finally, Lena spoke. "Do you want to stop?" I looked at her, and my heart cracked a little. "Stop what?" "This..." She gestured vaguely between us. The fake engagement, the real feelings, all of it. I shook my head immediately. "No, then what do you want?" I didn't know how to answer, because what I wanted didn't make sense. "I want this without the pressure," I said. "I want us without the world watching." Her eyes softened. "I want..." She moved closer slowly, not rushed, not intense, just careful. Her hand found mine, and this time when she kissed me, it wasn't heated. It wasn't overwhelming. It was gentle, reassuring, like she was saying we'll figure this out without using words. Her thumb brushed softly against my hand. My forehead rested against hers, and for a moment the noise outside the penthouse didn't matter. The articles didn't matter. The world didn't matter. It was just us, trying to understand something we never planned to feel, and realizing we didn't want to. The next few days felt fragile, not bad, not distant, but careful. Like both of us were walking around something delicate we didn't want to break. We still shared the same space, still ate together, still sat close on the couch at night. But the kisses had slowed, the teasing had softened, and in its place was something deeper, quieter, more dangerous. Because now we weren't acting on impulse. We were thinking, and thinking made everything heavier. It happened on Thursday afternoon. Lena was in her office taking calls, and I was in the kitchen trying to focus on replying to emails when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You don't belong in our world." I frowned. Another message came. "You're temporary. Don't get too comfortable." My stomach tightened. I didn't respond. But the third message made my hands shake. "People like you don't end up with people like Lena Hart." I immediately locked my phone. My heart pounded, because suddenly the outside noise wasn't just articles and comments. It was personal, direct, targeted. Lena walked into the kitchen a few minutes later and immediately noticed my expression. "What happened?" I tried to brush it off. "Nothing." She stepped closer. "You forget I read people for a living." I hesitated, then handed her the phone. She read the messages once, then again. Her jaw tightened. Her expression changed in a way I had never seen before. Not calm, not composed. Angry, very angry. "Who sent this?" "I don't know, it's a private number." She took a deep breath, trying to control herself. "Block it." I did. She placed the phone down gently, then looked at me, and the anger in her eyes softened into something else. "Concern? You're not temporary," she said quietly. I looked at her. "You don't have to say that." "I'm not saying it because I have to." She stepped closer. "So listen to me carefully." Her hands came up, resting gently on my... "You belong exactly where you are." My chest tightened. People will always talk. They always have. But this... She gestured between us. "This is not something they get to define." That night, Lena didn't let me out of her sight. We cooked dinner together, sat shoulder to shoulder while eating, and when we moved to the couch, she pulled me close without asking, like she needed the reassurance as much as I did. "You know what bothers me the most?" She said softly. "What?" "That this is hurting you." "It's not hurting me," I said. She gave me a look. "It's scaring me a little," I admitted. Her arm tightened around me. "I won't let anyone make you feel small in my life." I tilted my head to look at her. "You don't have to protect me. I want to..." And the way she said it made my heart ache. Later that night, the tension between us shifted again, not because of fear, but because being this close for hours made it impossible to ignore what we felt. I was sitting sideways, my legs tucked under me, facing her. She was watching me quietly, not talking, just looking. "What?" I asked softly. "You don't realize what you do to me," she said. My breath caught. "What do I do?" "You make me forget how to stay guarded." She leaned closer, her hand brushing gently against my waist. And this time, when she kissed me, it was slow, deep, intentional, like she was trying to erase every ugly word those messages had planted in my head. My hands found her shoulders, holding on to her. The kiss lingered, warm, comforting. Her fingers tightened slightly at my side, pulling me closer without force. Just closeness, just presence. When she pulled back, our foreheads rested together. "You're not going anywhere," she whispered. I didn't realize until that moment that she had been afraid too. And somehow, that made me feel even closer to her. Because this wasn't one-sided anymore. We were both in it. Equally, fully. And there was no pretending. The day everything broke started quietly. Too quietly. Lena had an early meeting across town, so I woke up alone in the penthouse for the first time in weeks. The silence felt unfamiliar, heavy, like the air was waiting for something to happen. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen island, tried to distract myself by scrolling through emails, and that's when I saw it, a notification. Dozens, hundreds. My phone started buzzing so hard it vibrated against the marble counter. At first, I thought it was another article, another round of gossip. But when I opened the first link, my stomach dropped so fast it felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. A leaked email. A screenshot. An old message from Lena's PR team from the very beginning. The fake engagement plan should stabilize her public image for at least 3 months. I stared at it, my vision going blurry, my hands cold. Because it was real. It was from the very start. Before me. Before anything changed. And now, it was everywhere. Headlines were brutal. Lena Hart's engagement exposed as a publicity stunt. Fiancée revealed to be part of a PR plan. Was any of it real? I couldn't breathe. I didn't know whether to cry or panic or throw my phone across the room, because this wasn't gossip. This was truth. But it wasn't the whole truth, and the world never waits for the whole truth. My phone rang. "Lena?" I answered immediately. Her voice was tight. "Have you seen it?" "Yes. I'm coming home?" Her tone wasn't calm. It wasn't controlled. It was furious and afraid. By the time she got back, the penthouse no longer felt like a safe place. It felt like a glass box, like the world could see inside. She walked in quickly, dropped her bag without looking, and came straight to me. Her hands grabbed my face gently. "Look at me." I did. Her eyes were filled with something I had never seen before. Panic. "It's okay," I whispered, even though my chest hurt. "No, it's not." She pulled me into a tight hug. So tight it almost hurt. "They're going to tear you apart. I can handle it. You shouldn't have to." Her voice broke slightly, and that scared me more than the articles. The media camped outside the building. Calls flooded her phone. Her board demanded a statement. Her PR team wanted damage control. But Lena ignored all of it. She sat with me on the couch, holding my hand like if she let go, I might disappear. "This is my fault," she said. "You didn't leak it, but I started it," she replied. "I agreed to something that involved you without knowing you." I shook my head. We both knew what this was at the start. She looked at me, and her voice lowered. But I didn't know what it would become. By evening, the pressure was unbearable. News channels were debating whether our relationship was real or fabricated. Strangers were deciding, and for the first time since this began, I felt small. Very small. I think I started quietly. Lena looked at me immediately. "What? I think I should leave for a few days." Her face changed instantly. "No, Lena, no." She stood up, pacing. "I will not let them chase you away from here. They're not chasing me," I said softly. "I just need space to think." She stopped walking, her eyes searching mine, and I could see the fear there. The same fear I felt, because this was the moment we both realized something terrifying. If I walked out that door, nothing was guaranteed anymore, and that scared her a lot. "Are you leaving me?" she asked quietly. The question hit harder than anything else that day. I stepped toward her. "No." "Then don't go." I hesitated, because my heart was torn between staying and protecting myself from everything happening outside. She walked closer, her hands gently finding mine. "I don't care what the world thinks, but I care if you walk away because of it." And that's when I understood. This wasn't about the fake engagement anymore. This was about us, and whether we were strong enough to survive the truth. That night, neither of us slept. Not really. We stayed in the living room with the lights dimmed, phones face down on the table like they were dangerous objects we didn't want to touch. The world outside the penthouse was loud, but inside, it was just us, and the truth sitting between us like a third person we didn't know how to talk to. Lena hadn't let go of my hand for hours. Not when we moved from the couch to the floor. Not when we leaned back against it, sitting side by side. Not even when the silence stretched long and uncomfortable. She held on like if she loosened her grip, I might disappear. And the more I felt it, the more I realized something. I didn't want to leave. Not because I was scared of the world, but because I was scared of losing her. Around 2 a.m., Lena her voice was quiet. Raw. I don't regret starting the fake engagement. I looked at her. She swallowed. I regret that I didn't know you yet when I agreed to it. My chest tightened. Because if I had known you... She turned to face me fully. I would have wanted this for real from the beginning. My heart felt like it stopped. Because that wasn't a PR sentence. That wasn't a rehearsed line. That was Lena, stripped of control, stripped of image, just honest. I fell in love with you, she said, and the way she said it. There was no hesitation, no fear, just certainty. I tried to convince myself it was just closeness, just comfort, just timing, but it's not, it's you. My eyes burned. Lena, I love you. The words settled into the room like something sacred, and for the first time since the leak, I felt calm, because this was what mattered, not the headlines, not the comments, not the past, just this moment. I love you too. And the relief on her face was almost painful to see. Like she had been holding that in for too long. The next morning, Lena did something no one expected. She called a press conference. Live. Her PR team begged her to wait, to draft statements, to control the narrative. She refused. She stood in front of cameras with no script, no rehearsal, and I watched from the penthouse, my heart in my throat. I need to say this clearly, she began. Yes, the engagement started as a PR strategy. The reporters exploded with questions. She raised her hand calmly. But that's not the whole story. Her voice didn't shake. Her eyes didn't waver. Somewhere along the way, it stopped being fake. It became the most real thing in my life. The room went silent. I fell in love with her. No PR spin, no protection, just the truth. And whether the world believes it or not, I am choosing her. Not for my image, not for my career, but because I want to. I felt tears sliding down my... Because she didn't have to do this. She could have protected herself, her reputation, her company. But she chose me, publicly, without hesitation. When she came back to the penthouse, I didn't say anything. I just walked straight to her and wrapped my arms around her. She held me tightly, exhaling like she had been holding her breath all day. You didn't have to do that, I murmured. Yes, I did. Why? She leaned back slightly, looking at me. Because I don't ever want you to think you were temporary. My heart felt too full for my chest. She kissed me then. Not rushed, not heated, just deep, certain. Her hands resting gently at my waist. Mine curled into her jacket, and for the first time in days, the noise in my head stopped. That night, we sat on the balcony together, the city lights below us. No phones, no news, just quiet. Lena slipped something onto my wrist, a bracelet, simple. I bought this the day I realized I was in trouble, she admitted. I smiled. What kind of trouble? The kind where you stop wanting to pretend. I leaned into her shoulder, and she wrapped her arm around me. Comfortable, certain, real. The fake engagement had brought us together. But love made us stay. And as I sat there, watching the city with the woman who had once been my boss, my fake fiancé, and now the person I couldn't imagine my life without, I realized something beautiful. Sometimes the best things start as accidents and turn into forever. A week later, the world had moved on. News cycles are fast, outrage is loud but short-lived, and eventually something newer, louder, more scandalous stole the spotlight. But inside the penthouse, life felt different, quieter, softer, real. For the first time since I walked into Lena's office weeks ago, there were no cameras outside the building, No reporters calling, no PR team sending urgent emails. Just morning light spilling across the kitchen by the coffee, wearing one of my oversized hoodies instead of her usual sharp, tailored clothes. I stood in the hallway watching her, hair slightly messy, glasses on, completely unaware that she looked nothing like the woman the world thought they knew. She turned when she felt my eyes on her, and smiled. Not the CEO smile, not the polite smile, the one she only ever gave me. "Stop staring," she said. "I live here. I can stare." She walked over and handed me a cup of coffee. Our fingers brushed. Neither of us pulled away. We didn't rush kisses anymore. We didn't grab each other out of urgency. We just stayed close, like proximity itself was enough. Later that afternoon, Lena surprised me. "Get dressed," she said casually. "Why? We're going out public?" I asked cautiously. She nodded. "Very public." My stomach flipped. She noticed and stepped closer, her hands resting gently on. "Not because we have to," she said softly, "but because I want to walk beside you without hiding." And somehow, that felt bigger than the press conference. We went to a small bookstore cafe across town. Nothing fancy, nothing glamorous, just quiet, normal. Lena held my hand the entire time we walked inside. No hesitation, no checking who was watching. And for the first time, I realized something. She wasn't protecting her image anymore. She was protecting us. We sat by the window, knees touching under the table. She reached across and absent-mindedly traced her thumb over my knuckles while we talked. Small touches, unconscious, intimate in a way that felt deeper than anything before. "You're staring again," she murmured. "I like this version of you." She tilted her head slightly. "Which one?" "This one, where you're not trying to be Lena Hart." She smiled. "This is who I am when I'm with you." That evening, back at the penthouse, the quiet felt warm instead of tense. Over how much salt to add. Laughed when Lena burned the first batch of vegetables because she was too busy watching me talk. And later, we ended up on the couch again. Not because we planned it, but because it had become our place. I was half lying against her, my head resting on her shoulder, her arm wrapped around me, the TV playing something neither of us was watching. She pressed a soft kiss into my hair, then another against my temple. Slow, affectionate, unhurried. "I like this," she whispered. "What? Us when there's nothing to prove?" I turned slightly to look at her. She brushed her fingers gently along my cheek and kissed me, deep, warm, unrushed. The kind of kiss that wasn't about tension or confusion or fear. Just love. Her hand slid to my waist, holding me close without urgency. Just presence. Just comfort. When we pulled apart, our foreheads rested together, breathing the same air, smiling softly. Later that night, as we lay in bed, lights off, city glowing faintly through the curtains, Lena's fingers traced lazy patterns against my arm. "Do you ever think about how this started?" she asked quietly, "all the time?" And I smiled in the dark. "I'm glad it was fake." She laughed softly. "Why?" "Because if it wasn't, we might have been too careful, too polite, too slow." She pulled me a little closer. "And now it's real, and we didn't even see it coming." She kissed my shoulder gently and whispered the words that made everything feel complete. "I'm really glad you walked into my office that day." I smiled against her chest. "Me too." And as I fell asleep in her arms, I realized something beautiful. This wasn't the dramatic kind of love people wrote headlines about. It was the quiet kind, the everyday kind, the kind where you wake up beside someone and don't want to be anywhere else. And for the first time since this whole story began, there was no pretending left.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching my YouTube video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe, and turn on your bell icon to get notified when I post more amazing Yuri video, and I will see you in my next video.